te guna guna kathaya sudhaya plavito ruktapaha kshanam iva puline yamasvasustam samusita aupagavir nisham tatogat. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after thus discussing with Vidura the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc. on the bank of the Yamuna, Uddhava was overwhelmed with great affliction. He passed the night as if it were a moment, and thereafter he went away. Purport. The word used here for Krishna is Vishwamurti. Both Uddhava and Vidura were in great affliction because of Lord Krishna's departure. The more they discussed the transcendental name, fame, and qualities of the Lord, the more the picture of Lord became visible to them everywhere. Such visualization of the transcendental form of the Lord is neither false nor imaginary, but is factual, absolute truth. When the Lord is perceived as Vishwamurti, it is not that he loses his personality or transcendental eternal form, but he becomes visible in the same form everywhere. We will read the text 28 also. It's a little longer purport. We'll try to complete that. Raja Uvacha Nidhanam Upagateshu Vrishni Bhojeshwa Adhiratha Yuthapa Yuthapeshu Mukhya Satu Katham Avasishta Uddhavo Yad Dharir Api Tatyaja Akritim Tradhishaha. Translation. The king inquired, at the end of the pastimes of the Lord of the three worlds, Sri Krishna, and after the disappearance of the members of the Vrishni and Bhoja dynasties, who were the best of the great commanders? Why did Uddhava alone remain? Purport. According to Sri Jiva Goswami, Nidhanam means the transcendental abode of the Lord. Ni means the highest, and Dhanam means opulence. And because the abode of the Lord is the highest manifestation of transcendental opulence, his abode can therefore be called Nidhanam. Apart from the grammatical elucidation, the real purpose of the word Nidhanam is to indicate that all the members of Vrishni and Bhoja dynasties were direct associates of the Lord. And after the end of his pastimes, all the associates were dispatched to their respective positions in the transcendental abode. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura elucidates the meaning of Akritim as pastimes. A means complete, and Kritim means transcendental pastimes. Since the Lord is identical with his transcendental body, there is no question of his changing or quitting his body. To act in accordance with the rules and customs of the material world, the Lord seems to take his birth or leave his body, but the pure devotees of the Lord know well the actual fact. It is necessary, therefore, for the serious students of Srimad Bhagavatam to follow the notes and comments of the great acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti. To others who are not devotees of the Lord, the comments and explanations of such acharyas may appear to be grammatical jugglery, but to the students who are in the line of disciplic succession, the explanations of great acharyas are quite fit. The word Upagateshu is also significant. All the members of Vrishni and Bhoja directly reach the abode of the Lord. Other devotees do not reach the abode of the Lord directly, but the pure associates of the Lord have no attraction for the opulence of any planets of the material world. Sometimes, due to inquisitiveness, devotees who are to be promoted to the abode of the Lord have some attraction for the opulence of the higher material planets above the earth, and thus they desire to see them while going up to the perfection. But the Vrishnis and Bhojas were directly dispatched because they had no attraction for material planets. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura also suggests that according to the Amarakosha dictionary, Akriti also means signal. Lord Krishna ordered Uddhava by signal to go to Badrika Ashram after his departure, and Uddhava, as a pure devotee of the Lord, carried out the order more faithfully than going back to Godhead or the abode of the Lord. That was the cause of his remaining alone even after the departure of the Lord from the face of the earth. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Satarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayati girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatare. Hare Krishna. I remember I was in this lecture speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, I think 15 days ago on August 29th, maybe 12 or 13 days ago. I was just sharing with all of you that I went for this Balaji's Kalyanam ceremony, which happens every day here in Tirumala. So we registered for that, and myself and my wife and children happened to be there. Today is again one more special day for us. Today is Uddhav's birthday according to English calendar. So Uddhav and Sri Radhika, along with their uncle, they went to take darshan of Balaji. They performed this Unjal Seva ceremony in the afternoon with so many other devotees. So I seek blessings upon Uddhav on this day from all the assembled Vaishnavas. So let's get into this. I was greedy. I wanted to take the association or blessings of devotees before I start. So I may forget it towards the end of the class. So I just wanted to share that in the beginning. So in today's verse, actually, we see how Vidura and Uddhava are seeing the Lord. This is very beautiful. Why? Because Krishna had already departed from the material world. He had departed from the vision of everyone. He had departed from the vision of everyone who have kind of, charma chakshu. But Krishna never departs, from the vision of a pure devotee, right? Just like Prabhupada said that he was constantly in association of his spiritual master, although he was on Jalduta, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj had left the planet almost 40 years before that incident, 30 years before that incident. But then Srila Prabhupada was constantly feeling the presence of his spiritual master. It's not some kind of sentiment, definitely. For those who have kind of charma chakshu or material, who think through the material mind alone, for them it may appear like a sentiment. Oh, these people are sentimental. They are just imagining that they are still being with the person who is no more. But then it's not mere sentiment when it comes to, it may be a sentiment when it comes to those, imagining those of our relatives or some, close friends who just left the world and made us alone in this world. In that case, there can be some amount of sentimentality. I'm not saying it is completely sentiment, because those emotions are very, very sacred for those who are left behind. Like, for example, one of my relatives who is very close to me, or a friend, leaves this world, their thoughts will never leave me. Although they are no more present with me physically, their thoughts will never leave me. This is the power of material emotions, right? The emotions that we develop towards a person who lives with us for a few years. And even though we don't see them as a spirit soul, or even though they don't see us in connection with Krishna, still we feel that emotion, right? We feel that emotion, just like I feel that emotion towards my grandparents who were there throughout my childhood looking after me. So that kind of emotion is there for all of us. In some sense, we can say it is a mere sentiment when it comes to relationships of this world. But then when it comes to relationship between Krishna and his devotees, it's not sentiment. It's on another plane of reality, right? Many times we hear this, like, in stories of, our acharyas also, all the different pastimes, they say that, once this particular devotee is sleeping, and in the dream Krishna appeared, like for Madhavendra Puri, Krishna appeared and he spoke to Madhavendra Puri, said, like, I am staying in the bush. I have been here for so many years. I am feeling very hot. Can you please take me out? Now, for us, dream means, for an ordinary person, dream is nothing but another state of illusion, right? So when we are awake, this is one state of illusion which is around us, which makes us think that you are this body, everything that belongs to this body is yours. This is one state of illusion. And dream is nothing but a transformation of this illusion into a different plane, right? In the dream, I assume myself to be a great king wearing a golden mukut, and sitting on the throne, ordering everyone. Sometimes I even order God also. That is the kind of dream I get, because that dream is nothing but another dimension of our illusion, right? So that's the dream. And for a pure devotee, it is completely different. It is when they are living in this world, this itself is actually a reality for them, because this world is no more material world for them. It is actually spiritual world. Why? Because we all heard this many times, that Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. Of course, it is a place where we visit through, during yatras and other, other events. And actual, this is Bhauma Vrindavan. And there is spiritual world also, right? This may be in another dimension. This may not be in the Newtonian kind of reality that we speak of. But then that is in another dimension. And these pure devotees actually reach that dimension while staying in this world itself. That's why they are called Jivan Muktas. Right? They actually, that's a reality they are living in, actually. For them, all the other things that are around them do not affect them. Why? Because they are not living in this illusion. They are living in the reality. And when they go to sleep, and in their sleep, Krishna comes and speaks to them, says that, okay, pull me out of this bush. That is another level of reality for them. That's no more illusion, right? For us, whether we are awake or sleep, both are illusions only. Both are different dimensions of illusions. Whereas for a pure devotee, both are different dimensions of realities, right? So that's why their dreams cannot be considered as mere sentiments. Similarly, what they experience in this material world also cannot be considered as mere sentiment. It is actually the truth that they are able to see through the Gnana Chakshu, through Shastra Chakshu, and then the Prema Chakshu. Initially, we have the Charma Chakshu, the eyes made of flesh and skin. When we study scriptures, then we develop what is called Shastra Chakshu. That means we see the world through the eyes of Shastra, through how the Shastra looks at the world. That is how we start looking at it. That is how we train ourselves. We actually learn to see through the eyes of Shastra. Then we can see, okay, there is a mouse here, there is a keyboard here. This is made up of 5 different elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And they all have their real existence in Krishna. This is how we see. We don't have any practical, practical realization of this. But still, we see this in connection with Krishna, according to how the Shastra says. Because Shastra says, Bhumirapo Analo Vayakam Mano Buddhirevacha Ahankarayati Yame Bhinnat Prakriti Rashtada. These 8 elements are coming out of myself. That's what Krishna says. And then when we see a tree, then we see that, okay, this tree is actually a soul who is trapped inside the body of a tree. We don't see that, okay, this is a tree, right? We see, okay, this tree is trapped inside this soul is trapped inside the body of a tree, and it has been living here for so many years, right? And how do we get this vision? We understand, Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshina. So we see through the eyes of the Shastra, right? We see through the eyes of Shastra, and in fact, we may see Vadanti Tattva Tattvam Jnanam Advayam. Different levels of devotees see the truth in different ways, So this is how we develop Shastra Chakshu. And over a period of time, this Shastra Chakshu turns into Gnana Chakshu. Gnana Chakshu is the vision that we get through, we see through our realizations. After reading Shastra and digest the Shastra, we see the world through our realizations, right? That is the second level. But then even beyond that, because Krishna is much, much beyond the Shastra's reach, or he's also much beyond the Gnana reach, right? He's much beyond. When we start looking at this is how we actually form our foundations. And over a period of time, we become faithful to Krishna. We serve Krishna as per the instructions given in Shastra through Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. That is when slowly we develop what is called Prema Chakshu. Prema Chakshu means eyes which are tinged or salved with love for Krishna. That means everywhere we see Krishna only, because nothing is separate from Krishna. That's how a pure devotee develops his vision. So here, Vidura and Uddhava are sitting on the bank of Yamuna. They are seeing Krishna, they are associating with Krishna. How is it possible? Again, one verse from Bhagavad Gita, it says, anyone remembers the Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, one of the shlokas, Machchitta Madgata Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, Kadayantasya Mam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. They become extremely happy by discussing about my pastimes, Krishna says. And what brings happiness? Is it just the storyline that brings happiness, just like in a movie? We go and look at the storyline. Sometimes it is exciting, sometimes it is romantic, sometimes it is thrilling, sometimes it is ghastly. All these things stir different emotions in our heart, and that brings some kind of happiness in our heart, right? But then the kind of happiness devotees experience is not because of these material emotions. They are there. They are there. In fact, if for those who may not know this, of course you all may know this, but I'm just wanting to share this. Like all the rasas that Rupa Goswami explains in the Nectar of Devotion, they are all actually have very close connection with Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra. He took all the rasas from there and he explained them in connection with Krishna's devotional service. So different types of emotions, different types of rasas, which are the 12 rasas that are explained in Nectar of Devotion, are actually taken from Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra. So actually these material emotions are there, but they are fleeting emotions. They just come and go. They are illusory emotions. Whether they are present or not present, they are actually as good as nothing, right? Because they only bring some very temporary happiness to the heart. But then when these emotions are experienced in connection with Krishna, that is when we actually have this transforming experience in the heart. We actually have the transforming experience in the heart. Why is it? Because it is in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the reservoir of pleasure, who is the source of all knowledge. So Vidura and Maitreya, while discussing about Krishna, are experiencing Krishna. They are afflicted, overwhelmed with great affliction. That's what is written here. They passed the entire night like this, and as a moment, and then Uddhava left that place, right? He gave the instruction to Vidura to go and meet Maitreya. So Prabhupada actually explains here very wonderful things. He says very clearly here, the Lord is perceived as, where is this? Such visualization of transcendental form of Lord is neither false nor imaginary, but is factual, absolute truth. That's what we have been discussing this. Why? Because the name, fame, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord are like a secret bank account, right? A secret bank account. Actually, the holy names of Krishna, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is like the password to the spiritual world's, entry door. So you have that password. This is a very high fund, entry door. It's much beyond the modern technology that we are looking at. All the security safety systems that are around us, they are nothing in front of this security system. That you chant the holy names in proper consciousness, then you will be able to enter. The names actually transform into form of the Lord. First we start looking at the form of the Lord in the heart. The name transforms into the form. We don't have to imagine this. It actually transforms. We get that realization. And over a period of time, we start experiencing the qualities of the Lord just by chanting the holy names. And when we experience the qualities, the wonderful qualities of Krishna, to a sufficiently great extent, then we are actually given entry into the pastimes of the Lord, right? So the name itself has the potency to take us through all this. And when we are experiencing, when we are involved, or when we are into the pastimes of the Lord, that is none other than spiritual world. That experience is same as what we get in the spiritual world. And that's why these pure devotees are actually in the spiritual world. They are actually existing there. They are actually constantly living in those pastimes. Although they see all these things around them, they don't affect them. Why? Because they are seeing Krishna everywhere. Just like Vishwamurti, the word is used here. Now, Vishwamurti means, Prabhupada actually says Vishwamurti is used for Krishna, not in an impersonal sense, but it is representing his transcendental personality, because Krishna is visible everywhere for them, right? At the max, at our level, or at least my level, I can only see things connection with Krishna, right? Things, anything around me, I can see some connection with Krishna. At the max, I can use them in service of Krishna, but I cannot see them as Krishna. It's not possible, right? But then a pure devotee always sees them as very dear, or themselves as Krishna himself, right? Because they see Krishna everywhere. For them, there is no difference between, okay, material and spiritual. For them, everything is spiritual. For people like me, it is everything is material, right? So that's how Vidura and Uddhava have been discussing. And Yugayitam Nimeshena, that is what they are experiencing. One moment is greater than 1 millennium in these pastimes of Krishna. right? So this is a wonderful feeling. Now, how to see Krishna? We can actually have a very long discussion on this. Just explaining different sections of our folio, in the Veda base. Prabhupada actually spoke about seeing Krishna at so many places. Not only Prabhupada, all our acharyas have given so many commentaries, hundreds and thousands of places, which comes immediately to my mind. One which comes immediately to my mind is Kunti Maharani's prayers. What is the first verse? I think 18 or something. Kunti Maharani actually says that you are not visible to anyone because you are like drama artist on a stage. She glorifies Krishna like that, right? Although Maya Javanika Channam Agnadokshajam Avyayam Nalakshase Mooda Drisha Nato Natya Dharo Yatha. Yes, you are like a stage performer. And that's why there is a curtain of Maya in front of you. That's why people cannot see you. If we see Kunti Maharani's prayers from this perspective, we can actually see that, we can actually understand that Kunti Maharani is telling us how to see Krishna. If you get a chance to read this again sometime, whenever you get some time, maybe you can try to analyze Kunti Maharani's prayers from the perspective of how to see Krishna, right? So that's what she is explaining throughout the entire book of teachings of Queen Kunti. We will see how one can see Krishna. This is what is being explained continuously, right? So here Uddhava and Vidura, they are also seeing Krishna. Similarly, Parikshit Maharaj is also seeing Krishna. Now we can see our Goswamis, they are all seeing Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is constantly seeing Krishna, right? So actually, for a pure devotee, Krishna is never lost. For a normal ordinary person whose consciousness is soaked in matter, Krishna is never visible. So both are truths. So we can check. We are somewhere in between. Sometimes Krishna is visible, sometimes he is not for us. Why is it? Why? Because sometimes we are in spiritual world, sometimes we are in material world. That's why soul is called Tatastha. Tata means bank, river bank. Tatastha means one who is standing on the river bank. Whether he is, the sand which is on the river bank, sometimes it is wet, sometimes it is dry, right? Similarly, the soul present, the soul by its nature is tatastha. It is a tatastha, marginal potency of the Lord. Sometimes it is in material consciousness, sometimes it is in spiritual consciousness. But the soul itself, because of being the internal, part and parcel of the internal potency of the Lord, has a tendency or has a potency to actually take complete shelter of any one of these energies. When it takes complete shelter of material energy, it becomes completely frustrated. When it takes complete shelter of the spiritual energy or Srimati Radharani, it becomes completely happy, right? So both are possible. That's why one has to actually, one of the reasons why we read Shastra is to understand how to see the Lord, right? We want to develop the um, we want to develop the vision to see the Lord, right? We all want to see the Lord, right? So Lord is visible to all of us through Shastra at this point, through the realizations of Guru after some time, through our own realizations even in a mature stage, and finally eye to eye, face to face. Prabhupada actually says this: one can see Krishna face to face, right? How is it possible? Because he is seeing, he can tell the reality. We cannot see, we think it is sentiment. That's how it works actually. I have, I think, 2 or 3 more minutes. Let me try to cover this also. Especially, I want to focus on the last paragraph of this verse. The word Upagateshu is also significant. Why? Because all the members of Vrishni and Bhoja directly reach the abode of the Lord. So basically, going back to spiritual world happens in stages. So at one place, Prabhupada explains that those who are very sincerely practicing devotional service in this life, they get a chance to associate with Krishna, in one of those planets where Krishna is performing his Leela. Because Krishna is like, Krishna's appearance and disappearance are like setting and rising of the sun, right? We heard this example several times. So when Krishna disappears in this day of Brahma, in this planetary system, he is appearing somewhere else in the material world, right? He is taking all his entourage to the different place. So a devotee gets association of Krishna first in this place, in the material world where Krishna is performing his Leela. first he gets there, because he needs training before going to spiritual world, right? And after he is sufficiently trained, in the material realm associating with Krishna, he actually is sent to the abode of Krishna. But then, while going to the abode of Krishna also, there are so many things in between, especially the heavenly planets. That's a major stumbling block. The other day I was just trying to meditate on this, that I'm just passing through different planetary. Again, it may appear a little sentimental, but then I'm just passing through different, Bhu, Bhuvar, Suvar, Maha, Jana, Tapa, Satyaloka. And my intention to do this was to see how long I can focus on the spiritual world, which is beyond Satyaloka. But then by the time I go to Swargaloka, I am stuck there, because I don't hear much of the description about Bhuvarloka in the scriptures, but Swargaloka is much more elaborately described. This I know. And there is all kinds of different enjoyments that are present there. Maybe I did not read the Shastra completely to understand what happens in Bhuvarloka. But then there are, Jana, Tapo and Satyaloka. There is also great description about them also. At least in my knowledge, these things are very elaborately described. And Swargaloka is one of the prominent description, because every living entity wants to go there. Every living entity, because there is unlimited enjoyment. That's what everyone thinks. There is no death. I was asking one of my teachers, and in Swargaloka also there is no death. What is the point in going to spiritual world to experience no death? In Brahmaloka, in fact, Prabhupada writes in one of the purport, there are no birth, old age, disease, death in Brahmaloka also. He says that in one of the purports. I was very surprised. Why it is like this? This is also, Krishna says, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna. But then Prabhupada in this purport is saying there are no birth, death, old age, disease in Brahma Loka. So actually, I was checking with one of my teachers. He said that in Swargaloka there is no death. That is true. Why? Because when a person approaches old age in Swargaloka, he is thrown out of Swargaloka. So the death doesn't happen in Swargaloka, it happens outside Swargaloka. Right? And that death is not like how it happens to all of us. It is a different type actually. Kshine Punya Martyalokam Vishanti. He just glides down to the material, to the earthly planets. That is we can say death from the Swargaloka perspective, because he loses all pious credits. Again, he comes into the cycle of birth and death in the earthly planet. He actually takes birth and again experiences his good and bad karma, or creates new karma. All these things happen. Similarly, in Brahmaloka also, birth, death, old age, disease do not happen the way they are happening here. They happen in much subtler forms, and without any pain, without any kind of sad, morose experience that we see here. It happens there also. That's why Krishna emphatically says, Abrahma Bhunaloka Punaravartino Arjuna. So one takes shelter of Krishna, then he goes directly to the spiritual world. And that lecture of Prabhupada is very famous. How long does it take to go back to spiritual world? Prabhupada says 1 minute. He says very emphatically, he says only 1 minute it is sufficient to go back to spiritual world. Why? Because it's not like a physical journey that we are talking about. It is about the change of consciousness. As soon as the consciousness is changed, there is no difference between spiritual and material world. We don't see all these things as we are seeing now. It may be a little difficult for us to understand. It may be a little difficult for us to accept, but that is a fact. And that's why Uddhava also remained back in the material world, because for him there is no difference. For him, whether he is here or there or anywhere else, he is always in presence of Krishna only. He is always in association with Krishna, right? So that's why towards the end it is said, Akriti means signal. Lord Krishna ordered Uddhava by signal to go back to Badrikashram after his departure. And Uddhava, as a pure devotee of Lord, carried out the order more faithfully than going back to Godhead or the abode of the Lord. Because for him, it doesn't make any difference. Wherever he is, that is only spiritual world. Because he is carrying Krishna in his heart. We see Prabhupada also did the same thing. He carried Vrindavan in his heart. So he never left Vrindavan in that sense. Right? That was the cause of his remaining alone even after the departure of the Lord from the face of the earth. Because he never left the Lord. So these are few of my thoughts. I will stop here. I have taken 4 extra minutes. If anyone have any comment or any question, please go ahead. And if I have spoken anything wrong, please don't hesitate to correct me. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Humble obeisances, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, very happy to see you back in the. Thank you for the wonderful, talk. Just my compliments, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you for being here and blessing us. Hare Krishna. So, anyone else wants to ask anything?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Nice to hear from you for a long time.
Thank you, Mataji.
I just wanted to send our blessings and prayers for your son and your family.
Thank you, Mataji.
On it's his birthday, right? Your son's birthday?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, very nice. Your class is like, you're one of them where I can focus a lot when you're giving a class. I don't know what it is, but
I am blessed, Mataji.
very
blessed by your presence.
For bringing it such clearly. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Mataji. In fact, all of your presence actually makes me speak something useful for myself, actually. Thank you very much for that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances of our Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. First of all, I'm very, very happy to see you. I actually joined very late. So towards the end, actually. So I'll have to go back and listen to the recording. And very happy Krishna conscious birthday to Uddhava. He's such a great devotee as well, and your whole family. So please bless us with your association in person, Prabhuji, soon.
May your words come true very soon, Mataji.
Krishna.
I wish to come there also.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And one question I have is, just from what I've heard from you in the last 5 minutes that I had joined, is it possible for someone to, as you said, right, the consciousness is what makes the difference between the spiritual world and the material world. So is it possible for someone to come back into the material consciousness if they had been in, let's say, if they were, once they get into the spiritual consciousness?
So it depends on how matured the devotee is in spiritual consciousness, Mataji. We also get some spiritual experiences. Is it not true that, when we are practicing Krishna consciousness, we get some amount of spiritual experience just by chanting Hare Krishna? Anybody can get some amount of spiritual experience, but then that is not long lasting. Why? Because we are not connected, rooted properly there. So one who is rooted properly, they never find any taste in material, material happiness. And that is when they constantly live in the spiritual world, right? So otherwise, those who are, those who are in material consciousness, they sometimes can go to spiritual consciousness and immediately quickly drop off. Why? Because it's simply because we are not steadily rooted there. Our roots are not fixed in the spiritual consciousness. Once our roots are fixed, then definitely we can stay back. We can remain like a large tree. Otherwise, we are just shaky in our foundation. Then we just fall off. So when we say we want to go back to spiritual world, it actually means that we go back in such a way that we never come back. That's the actual going back. Otherwise, now also we are going to spiritual world actually. Sometimes we go and we come back again. When we chant with devotees, when we are in association of Vaishnavas, we experience that. In front of deities, we experience that actually spiritual world only. But then that remains for a very, moment, very small moment it is. And then we again fall back. Why? Because our credits are not sufficient to go there. So when we develop them, when we actually strive, it's not about our developing, because bhakti is never achieved, bhakti is awarded. So when we actually have that tendency, or when we actually have that eagerness to achieve that state of consciousness, then that is awarded to us. When that is awarded, then we preserve it, because we got it after a lot of endeavor, and then we actually preserve it so much that we don't want to go back to material world. But sometimes pure devotees who are like they are nitya muktas, like Prabhupada speaks about his spiritual master. He says that he's a Vaikuntha man. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj is always living in Vaikuntha only. But why is he in the material world? Just for all of us. So such people become overly compassionate about jivas of this world, and they come here to deliver us. Again, their compassion is not like Jadabharata's compassion on the deer. Their compassion is true compassion, right? So they can come. They actually have as much freedom as Krishna has. It's like that. So such people will never fall down.
Okay. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So it's the deeply rooted, deeply rooted we are, which will
Yes,
determine that. Okay. Thank you so
and
much,
we all
Prabhuji.
know this. We all know
Yeah.
this, right, Mataji? We all know it very clearly that, we go there and we come back. We all know this. So it's nothing hiding. I mean, it's not that we have to experience some kind of light has to go off in our brain. Nothing like that. We all know we go there and we come back. It's happening every day.
Okay.
But we want to go back and stay there. That's the thing. Yes, Mataji.
Right. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other? Yes, Prabhu?
I just wanted to add something to the same conversation.
Please, Prabhu.
In the same canto, I think the 16th and 17th chapter where Jaya Vijaya and the four Kumaras thing happens, it's very stated that the four Kumaras are wandering and then they somehow enter the Vaikuntha planet. They go through up to the gate, and in the seventh gate they're stopped. And the whole incident happens, and after the whole incident happens, they don't stay in Vaikuntha, because Prabhupada actually explains in the purport that, they are just wandering, they come there, I don't know what's the reason, maybe it's like a qualification or whatever, and they return back. They can't enter Vaikuntha. So maybe it's something to do with consciousness, though they've become devotees of the Lord by looking at the Lord's lotus feet and smelling the aroma of the tulsi. So don't know if that is what you're referring to also. So just wanted.
Yeah, that's true, Prabhu. Like developed consciousness actually sees Bhagavan, the feature of Bhagavan. I mean, this is a fully developed, Purna Vikasita Chetana. That's what we call. And below that, in Vikasita and Mukula Chetana, we have some kind of experience of spirituality, but then that is not complete. That's why the ultimate Prabhupada actually says that Bhagavan feature is the shelter of Paramatma and the Brahmajyoti also. He refers to, he says that in the, I think, 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says that. So basically, complete realization of God culminates in realizing the Supreme Lord as a person, Bhagavan. So yeah, again, that may actually bring us to some kind of sentimental ideas also that is possible. One may say that, oh, you are imagining that God is form, God has form and all these things. But then, these things cannot be exactly explained in the words by ordinary people. The best explanations are already given by our acharyas. So when we read them, things become much, much more clear actually. Thank you for that, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So anything else, or we can close the class here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So first of all, very happy birthday to Uddhava. Now I was wondering, now we have heard this, it takes a moment to go to the spiritual world, and I've also heard that the worlds and the time that it takes, the layers, they get 10 times thicker every time. So in what context should we see this 10 times thicker, and in what context we should think of a moment?
Yeah, that's a good question, Prabhu. I think we have to get into space-time relativity here. Because the soul is much, much beyond all these things, Prabhu. The material world's construction is such that it's like a coconut, and each shell is 10 times thicker than the previous shell. And this kind of explanation is given to make us understand the dimensions of the material world. It is such a large thing, and because Krishna, in one sense, we can actually consider all this explanation as a purport to the verse Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, that Daivi Heshu Gunamayi Mama Maya Durakchaya. To understand this word Durakchaya, we can understand all these verses which are explained in Bhagavatam. They are kind of purport to the word Durakchaya, because on our own it is impossible to cross over. That's what they all indicate. So even if we cross over with some amount of, let's say, yogic power, that's only to some extent. We can't go beyond that. right? So when we say Mamevaye prapadyante mayam yetam tarantite, we can understand all the devotees who are within the material world and still remain completely pure, like a lotus in the muddy pool. Their consciousness is like, Mamevaye prapadyante consciousness, that they took complete shelter of Krishna and they are not affected by material world at all. Although these thick layers are there, in fact, all those layers actually represent our ignorance only. They are all, the thickness of our ignorance only in one sense. Why? Because we wanted to get stuck in this muddy pool. Nobody asked us. We came here. We want to stay here. We want to get some kind of juice out of this place. And that is our fault. But then Krishna is offering, hey, don't worry. Even now in this state, if you just take shelter of me, that's all. You are relieved of all. You may be in this, but you are not. That's what my spiritual master was explaining this. He says that a devotee is in the material world. He is not of the material world. So that really stuck with me for so long, actually, because his consciousness is completely in a different realm of reality. So we are in the realm of illusion, whereas he his physical presence is in this world only. But then his consciousness is transported to the reality of spiritual world. And that's why he works from there, just like we work from home, right? So we are sitting at home, but we are part of office, correct? Office also considers us like that. Similarly, a person sitting in the material world can be part of spiritual world. He can be acting on behalf of spiritual world because of his consciousness, right? So in that sense, it doesn't take one moment also. But for people like me, generally what happens is it takes one moment only to go to spiritual world, and it takes half moment to fall down from there. Why? Because I am not, as I was saying to Mega Mataji, I am not rooted there. I go there, experience, and then come back. That experience stays with me, but that is not sufficient for me to make me stay there, right? But for a pure devotee who is completely rooted in spiritual consciousness, it takes one moment to go there, and he remains there forever. He doesn't want to come back. But then he operates from there in the material world. That is possible. Because as I said, he gets as much freedom as Krishna himself. Krishna grants him that. Because there is no danger for him wherever he goes. For us, it is danger everywhere. For him, there is no danger. Wherever he goes, he purifies those places only. Right? So for him, there is no problem. So that is my little bit of understanding, Prabhu. Hope that makes it clear.
Yes, Prabhu. Very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I
If
think
there
we
are
can
no other
close here.
questions,
Yes.
yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. There are no other questions or comments. We can stop here.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the class.
Thank you so much.
Stop now, Prabhu.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
वैष्णववृन्द की
वृंद
जय।
की जय।
वंदना श्रीमद् भागवतम की
भागवतम की जय।
श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय।
हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्णा।